Hi, I'm Mike Hughes, and today we're going to go over the basics with the horse. We're going to go to bridling, then we'll go into blanketing and saddling, along with mounting and dismounting. This is Spin. Spin's been with me for a while in training, so we're just kind of going to go over how to bridle your horse, blanket them, saddle them, whatnot. So in the beginning with Spin, he was kind of hard to bridle, so some of the things we taught him in the beginning, here, go ahead and take us back to Spin. Some of the things we taught him in the beginning was how to use his head, because when horses drop their head, it becomes much easier to put a bit in their mouth if their head was way up here. So what we did is we put one hand on his nose, one hand on the top of his poll, and we'd rest our hands there, watch the tip of the ear, and as soon as that tip of the ear went downward, then we'd take our hands off and tell him he's a good boy. Now the horse's head can only go in 6 different directions: left, right, up, down, forward, and back. That is it. So as soon as Spin dropped his head even a 1/4 of an inch in the beginning, then we'd take our hands off. I'm not forcing his head down. I'm not putting a lot of pressure on his head. If I was putting a lot of pressure on his head is just going to go up. It's not going to go down. So if I'm just resting my hands here on his head, then he's going to start dropping his head just a little bit. Yeah, right there. And then you want to tell him he's a good boy. So this is just a preview on these exercises today. All my full videos are on my membership page. Just go to Google, type in Mike Hughes Horsemanship Members page, click on the link, and then subscribe. When you do subscribe, make sure you join my Facebook group page, where you can put videos of you working with your horse, pictures, and you can ask questions so I can help you and your horse more. All right, so that's one of the first steps we taught Spin, is how to drop his head. Another one we want to do is we want to be able to put our hands around his mouth to make sure he's going to be okay with that. If he started throwing his head up in the air, then we just keep our hands here as much as we can until the second he brought his head down. So even if he threw his head way up here, as soon as his head came down just a little bit, then we'd take our hands away from his nose and his mouth. Some horses are mouth shy. Some horses are head shy. So when we're going through this exercise, is have him drop his head. This is a really good exercise for the head and ear shy horse, because the problem with the head and ear shy horse, the issue is something on or above the horse's head and ears. When you start getting them to drop their heads down, all of a sudden you're above the horse's head and ears, and it's a great precept to solving your head and ear shy problems. So after we got Spin to drop his head, we start putting our hands around his mouth, his nose, and he started doing really good with that. Then I want to start sticking my thumb in his mouth where there's no teeth and having him open his mouth, just like that. And when Spin was really good with that, then we go on to the next couple of steps. And with the hard to bridle horses, I always use a lead rope, because the lead rope is just a piece of rope. It's not a steel bit, and if this bumps the horse's teeth while we're practicing with them, it's not going to hurt the horse at all. If I was to start with the bit, and the bit bumped his teeth, it's going to hurt, and Spin's not going to want the bit back in his mouth again. So we start putting the steps together. I'm going to lengthen the rope here. I'm going to ask Spin to drop his head. Then I'll bring this down just like it was the bit. I'm going to open his mouth, and then it's this hand up here that puts the bit in the horse's mouth. It was this hand that guides the bit into his mouth. Then it would be the right ear, and then the left ear, and if this was the bit would be in. Now going in reverse, taking the bridle out. If this was the bridle, you go off over his right ear, his left ear, ask him to keep his head down, and then gently you would let him spit the bit out so it doesn't bang his teeth. If again, it bangs his teeth, it's going to hurt, and he's not going to want that bit back in his mouth anymore. So again, we put it over his head, and remember, it's this hand right here that guides the bit, all right? This hand does not put the bit in the horse's mouth. It's this hand up top that puts the bit in his mouth. So I'm going to ask him to drop his head. Then I'm going to bring if this was the bit, I'd bring it around to his mouth. I'm going to put my thumb inside his mouth, and then this hand right here lifts the bit up into his mouth gently so it doesn't bang his teeth. And then the right ear, and then the left ear, and then the bit would be in the horse's mouth. And that's the steps that we had to go through with Spin in the beginning to teach him how to accept the bit, because he always wanted to throw his head up pretty high. Then again, taking it out would be the right ear, the left ear, wait, and then gently let him spit it out. All right, so let me grab the bridle here. There we go. So when we're bridling our horses, what I always do is I always put the reins around my shoulders. So now they're out of the way. I don't put them over the horse's neck. If I said put him over his neck and let's say something happened, he spooked and he took off, then he's going to be take my whole entire head stall with him, and the bit with him, and he's going to ruin my head stall, and the bit's going to be hitting his front legs if he was to try to take off, if the reins were around his neck, and it's just going to be a really, really big mess. Now with the bridle seems to be crooked here, so let me straighten this bit out here real quick. See what's going on here with it. So sometimes they get tangled up a little bit, so we've got to undo them here. There we go. And then I'll put the reins back over my shoulder. Then we come to the bridle. I'm gonna hold the head stall like this in my hand. I'm gonna put one hand on his nose. I have him drop his head just a little bit. My left hand's gonna feed up to my right hand. I'm gonna get the bit ready. I'm gonna put it right by his mouth. I'm gonna put my thumb in his mouth. And again, it's my right hand that puts the bit into his mouth. Then it's the right ear, and then the left ear. And that's how you would bridle your horse. And again, this is just the basics. Again, on my membership page, we go through all the steps on how to teach the horse how to accept the bit, how to get them to lower their heads, and all the steps that go into it with horses that are hard to bridle, your head and ear shy horses, along with other behavior issues. And there's over 280 videos on my membership page with step-by-step easy to follow methods. So I'm going to ask him to drop his head a little bit. There we go. And then again, taking the bridle out, I'm going to go over his right ear, his left ear, wait, and then gently let him spit it out. Good. Now we're just going to go ahead and put it back in. Go ahead and open your mouth spin. There you go. Right ear, left ear. Then the bridle will be on. Then we go to the throat latch. The throat latch, I just put on enough to where I can put my hand through it. I wouldn't want to have it tight or anything, so if I have the throat latch tight and I go to collect span, all it's going to do is choke them. All right, so you'll want to at least be able to put a hand in between the horse's jaw right here and the throat latch. Good boy, Spin. And then you just go ahead and put the reins over his neck, straighten out his bangs a little bit, tell him he's doing good, and that's a pretty good boy, Spin. Okay, now some horses have issues with blanketing, saddling, cinching, and that just comes down to desensitizing your horse. If your horse, I know my horse is nervous of the blanket, I'm not going to want to start with the blanket. I'd want to start with my hand, move to a rag, move to something a little bit bigger, and then bigger and bigger. Finally, he'll get comfortable with those things. Then I'd go to the saddle blanket and put that on them. And some horses are nervous of the saddle being put on their backs. I'd also go through the same steps. One thing you want to make sure of is that your horse is not in any type of pain when you start running into behavior issues. One of the number one things that cause behavior issues is pain. So if you think your horse is in pain, go ahead and have the vet come out, have the chiropractor come out. Make sure your horse is not in pain before starting any exercises. Just like when I have horses that come in with behavior issues, I always have the chiropractor and vet come out first, check out the horse's back, check them out, make sure they're not in any pain, then I can go on. It wouldn't be very fair to the horse if they're in pain and I just start teaching them, getting them out of bucking or whatever the case may be. I want to make sure they're not in pain before I start those exercises, any exercises, and it could be a performance issue, teaching them how to side pass, stop, back, leg yield, or whatnot, whatever the case may be. All right, so let's move back on through the basics here. I'm going to go ahead and grab the saddle blanket. And then when I put the blanket on, we're going to turn spin around here a little bit. Right, spin. Right about there. Oh, right there. So when I do the blanket, I usually stand right about here. And I'm just going to go ahead and put the blanket over his back. When you're teaching horses how to accept the blanket, the saddle blanket, saddle pad, again, you would start with the basics. You'd go to your hand, to a towel, to something a little bit bigger and bigger, then finally you'd put it on. And when you do put it on, eventually you'd want to be able to put it over their neck here. You'd want to be able to put it over their head and whatnot. With the saddle blanket, you'd also want to be able to do it from both sides. All right, so that would be the saddle blanket. All right, so now we're going to go to the saddle. Oh, this is spin saddle. So from the saddle, I'm going to do it from right here. Just take the saddle, and I'm going to stand back right here. And if your horse was tied, your horse can be tied. If you know how to ground tie, you can do it from right here without having your hand on the rein or the halter. And then we're just going to lift it up and put it on his back. So when you lift it up and put it on his back, you don't want to slam it down on his back. You just want to be able to put it up there. And just lift it up there and set it on his back. If you start slamming it on his back or dropping it on his back, it's going to be uncomfortable for him. And again, just like the bit, he's not going to want the saddle back on him anymore, and you'll start running into behavior issues. All right, so the next step I'm going to do, I'm going to turn spin around a little bit here. Watch spin right there and back up. So next would be come cinching spin up. I want to make sure the saddle's good, right there. Then I'm going to come around to the other side. I'm going to drop the cinch down. Okay. So we just went around, we dropped the cinch down. I'm going to take the, let it go out here, right here. And then we're going to come underneath and grab the cinch. And I do a latigo knot. And the reason I go through the latigo knot and how we do it is right here. And then you're going to put it back through here, the top here, and then run it back down through the bottom. And then just snug it up just tight enough to where, you know, I can still put my hand through it, but it's not tight at this point, or tight enough to where I'm going to get on anyways. And then with this piece, we're going to go back through here on the left side, and then go through the right side, and then just go down, and that'd be a latigo knot. I like the latigo knots a lot better than I like using the buckles here. I know you can be out on the trails, your saddle comes loose, or the cinch part comes loose, and this could have a tendency to pop out on you, where the latigo knot is never going to come loose or undone by any means. So I like using the latigo knot. Then from here, go ahead and snug them up a little bit, and then I'll snug this, rest this up a little bit, and now my horse is ready to, he's ready to go now. So this would be snug enough where I'd get on him. You don't need to have your horses gutted out where you cinch them so tight that you can't even get your hand in here. I like to be able to put my hand in here, but I want to feel it nice and snug. And then, you know, maybe sometime during the ride, you know, I feel it starting to come loose or something, or just because the horse is letting out air, then I can always get off, cinch it up a little bit more, and then get back on and ride. Again, I don't want to sit here and gut him out to him, getting it so tight, he's going, you know, I don't want to do that to him, because then pretty soon he's not going to want the cinch going underneath him, and that will cause behavior issues as well if you snug them up too tight, or if you do it super tight, because it's going to be uncomfortable, it's not going to feel very good. So it's going to be an issue later on. You'll cause your horse's behavior issues, because they're not going to want to be cinched up anymore. And, you know, they could start pinning their ears, biting, not standing still, dancing around, whatnot. Okay, so we're going to bring spin a little bit closer because we're right next to the tree, and we'll go over some mounting and dismounting. So let me get spin out here a little bit more. So we're going to bring spin right about there. Work. At any rate, so here's my stirrup. So we're in a western saddle, and you can either get on from the ground or under, or using a mounting block. Either way, your horse should be standing still. We're going to show you from the ground today. And I'm going to want to bring the stirrup, so I'm going to bring the stirrup towards me a little bit. I'm going to have my hand right here on the rein. Now I'm going to have bring the stirrup around here a little bit. We'll go ahead and put my foot inside the stirrup. And when I get on, I'm going to hop around. I'm going to make sure spin is flexed just a little bit towards me. This way he's not gazing off into the stars somewhere, not paying attention to me getting on or off. Once he's flexed a little bit, he ties us off. Then I'll go up, and I'll go on. And now we're on our horse. After I get on, spin needs to stand here for another 45 seconds on a loose rein, like we have here. The reason being is I don't want him to get in the habit every time I go to get on that he starts walking off or moving off. more people get hurt, get on or off their horses than they do from the ground or under saddle, because the horse that's anticipating taking off and running off as soon as you get on or off them. All right, so it's always good that they stand here for a good 45 seconds before you get on or off. And then after they have stood here for 45 seconds, I'm going to go ahead and just flex him to the left. And then I'll flex him to the right. Just make sure he's nice and responsive to me, and he is. And from there, I'll let him stand another 10 seconds. And then if we're going to go ahead and ride off, we would have just go ahead and ride off now. And that's been pretty good. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and have spin. And now when I go to dismount my horse, whether I'm stepping down on a block or a log or a rock, whatnot, I'm going to go ahead and have him flex towards me. So again, he's not going to be gazing off into the stars somewhere, not paying attention to me getting off. I always want him paying attention to me, not what's going on around him. And then I'm going to go ahead and when I get off, I'm going to step back here. And now we dismounted our horse and he did pretty good with that. So I'm going to go ahead and straighten him back out. And let's spin. And back up a little bit. And back up a little bit more. Good boy. So those are some of the basics that we go through with the bridling, blanketing, saddling, mounting, dismounting, and especially when we get on, it's really important the horse stays there for 45 seconds. And on a loose rein, then you can flex them left, right, another 10 seconds, and you could ride off. When you dismount, again, you want to wait another 10, 30 seconds before you get off, just so they're not anticipating moving off when you get on or when you get off your horse. All right. So we hope you enjoyed this. Again, these are just previews on how your horse can be. If you want to see all the full videos on solving behavior issues, horsemanship, building confidence and trust in the rescue horses, solving stall vices like cribbing, weaving, stall walking, through training, which I came out with that exercise, those programs, probably about 10 years ago, and they've done very, very well with a lot of people who had stall vices with their horses. All those programs are on my membership site, so go to Google, type in my Hughes horsemanship page, click on the link, click on subscribe, and we'll see you there. And remember, when you do, go ahead and go to my group page on Facebook, join my group page on Facebook, and that way you can post pictures, videos, and ask questions so I can help you and your horse more. And that way we can help you and your horses, and you can enjoy your horses more and have that horse that you dreamed of. All right, so thank you, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Oh shit, how do you fucking end this? How do I fucking end this?